Hi everybody, I'm Ztarli, and in this video I'll be doing something a little bit different. I'm actually recording at the same time as doing drawing. Usually I do the recording of the drawing separately and then do a voiceover afterwards, but I did have a request to do a sort of like a draw with me to sort of explain more in depth on what I'm doing and things like that, and I thought it would be easier if I recorded at the same time I was drawing rather than doing the voiceover later, so you can actually, like, I can circle stuff and show you what I'm doing. Now I have a lot of outtakes, so hopefully I don't stuff this up too much, and I hope you get some worth out of it. So to start with, this is my canvas. I'm using Artflow for Android on my tablet. And obviously I start with creating a new image, and I usually just go new image, and I usually set mine to a 4K size, which is one of the presets down here, and I make sure it's 300 DPI. That's basically how I start my images, and then I just use this space to create a sketch. They don't always end up this size. Sometimes I'll crop them down smaller, and I quite often do that, especially if I'm just doing like a portrait. I'll crop the sides off once the picture's finished. I just like having extra space for drawing in case I do want to make the picture a bit bigger. And the first thing I'll be doing is a sketch. Now depending on what I'm drawing, I may import some reference pictures first, and I do that by opening the you've got this up here is the layer window, and you've got your layers in here with your add new layer button up here, which is this one here, and you can just click on the layer and you can import images or photos. So I could click here to import an image, and I have lots of albums that I store stuff in. I use lots of references, and I used to draw a lot of people, so I have a lot of references for hands and faces and stuff, but I don't actually draw people very much anymore, so they kind of don't get used anymore. But say if like I wanted to draw a dragon from Day of Dragons or something, then I've got my own folders now for like flame stalkers and ice behemoths and that kind of stuff that I use for reference. Or, you know, I have horse references too, because horses are hard to draw, so I don't know, we just pick something, fish and faces and hair and stuff. I do like to use reference quite a lot, like sometimes just for inspirational art, or if I have something specific in mind, then I might download several images of, like, I don't know, you've got these water ponds or whatever, or sometimes my own art accidentally ends up in here, or gifts from other people. So yeah, like this is an old artwork of mine from 2014 anyway. Yeah, so that's how I would import an image if I was going to use it as a reference. So now I'm going to start my sketch. Now when it comes to sketching, choosing the brush for the sketch, it doesn't really matter that much, because I'm not going to keep the sketch. It's just so I have a rough idea of you know, what I'm drawing and where the shapes are going to go. I don't like using black very much, so I'll usually use a color that's very close to black but not quite black, and while sketching I generally have it so there's pen pressure. So I actually use the tablet I use is the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7 with a pen pressure S Pen, so when I'm drawing, I can dictate like how light or dark something is by how hard I press. So you can actually turn that kind of stuff off. Like for instance, if I change the setting here, then this is going to be like a sort of consistent line in its opacity, even if I press lighter or harder. But with sketching, I usually have it the other way around. So I'll have it so that it is dictated by the amount of pressure I press as to how light or dark it is. So I can sort of emphasize parts, because my sketching is very messy. So I'll sort of just like, you know, I'll just be like doing this sort of circular motion, and then when I want to make sure I get a certain shape, I'll just press harder and go over it more. Yeah, so we'll just draw default dragon because that's what I do when I can't think of anything to draw. So just sort of sketching out an idea. I like having this sort of down part on the neck, so you could do like a neck here and then you join them together to make it look more realistic. I don't know, put a wing here. There we go. It's got a wing. This is a wing. And chest. And its neck sort of twisting, so I'll draw my twist line here. What kind of horns? Let's go forward horns. I haven't done forward horns in a long time. Yeah, I like that. That's cool. So with my sketching, I just sort of play around until I'm happy with it. My sketches generally aren't very good, and I don't really notice a lot of flaws until I start putting down color and blocking out shapes, and then I realize things are in the wrong place or they need to be repositioned. But personally, I find it easier to reposition that kind of stuff once I know, once I'm putting down the color, and the sort of coloring and shading helps me realize where the shape should be. If I colored this like inked it and just did flat color, it'd probably be fine. But once you start adding shadow and light to something, if you've got a shape wrong, it becomes a lot more obvious. Where if it's just line and flat color, the line art does help a lot with making you sort of see shapes or make a picture more believable quicker without shading. But I'm not great at line art, and I really like painting, so I like the process of putting on shadow and light, so I sort of do that kind of thing. So now I'm going to call this sketch done, and I'm going to go into the next stage, which is to start with my coloring. Now I always have the sketch layer on a different layer to where my color is going to be, so I'll have the layer underneath, and you move the layers in Artflow by holding down on them and just moving it up or down and then letting go when you're happy with the positioning. You can also just take it off and that will delete the layer. But yeah, so I'll have my color layer underneath, and I'll just choose, what color should this dragon be? I'll just choose a random color for now, and then I might adjust it. I've done a lot of blue things lately. Yes, this color will do. And for this, again, I'm really sloppy with my painting and stuff, so it doesn't really matter if it's solid or not. But if you're going to use the bucket tool, it's probably best to use a solid line, so then there's less chance of your lines being too thin to keep the color drop in. I'll show you what I mean. So like this is a pretty solid brush, so it'll keep the color in, but if I had it set so its pen pressure is on, you'll see the line can vary, and if it's too light and you have it like too low, then the color can escape. So if you're planning on using the bucket tool, then I would have a more solid line, so making sure there's no variation in your opacity. So then I'll just do like rough outline here. Might make this brush bigger. Doesn't really matter too much to me because I don't have lines to keep within since I don't do line art. But we'll just do like this. And then I just dump the color in, and somehow I've left gaps. Where are they? There it is. Oops. I think I've got them all now. Yay! Now if you look closely, because I had the tolerance not full, there's a small gap in between where my lines are and when the paint bucket was dropped in. Now you can just click again if your tolerance is high enough, then it will make it go away, or you could just use the paintbrush and paint over those parts, depending on how fine or how close you're getting to the line, you may want to manually paint over it so that you don't end up with this like really sharp edge that you can see here. I don't mind, since I'll be painting over the whole lot and I don't have like a particular line or border that it has to neatly meet up to, since I'm not doing line art at all. But I will paint over the bottom part here so it actually reaches the bottom of the page. What I'm going to do will be to shade it. So now that I've got a solid base, depending on which version of Artflow you have, some of them, or what your device is capable of, some of them have this feature here where they've got this little arrow down into this curve. If I press that, it'll have this arrow next to it. What that means is that that layer will only paint over the layer below it. So if I choose a color now and I paint over this, you'll see it actually only affects the part below it, even though it's on a separate layer. And if you turn this off now, it'll show you the whole lot. So if you have this available, it is a super handy tool, especially if you want something in like a window or something like that, but you don't want to crop it or cut it off yet. You have the freedom to draw the whole thing and shift it and move it around without losing any part of the picture, but still only having it appear in one part, if that makes sense. So I use this all the time because it's really great for when I'm not sure about things, like if I'm not sure if I want to add accessories on, or if the patterns I'm adding to something are going to look good, then I'll always create a new layer before merging them together. But I'm going to choose a slightly different, and we'll make this a warmer picture. So I'm going to go with a darker color, and I'm going to use a fuzzier brush to begin with for my shadow, and I'll turn the opacity down a little bit, the size way up. So I'm just going to lay down now some rough areas where the shadows would be on this dragon. Now this is super rough because I don't want to take a million years showing you how I do stuff. So so it's shadow around the eye. I'll put a bit more shadow here. And we're going to change the color of those horns and stuff and add different colors in, I think. So I'm actually going to merge these together because I think I'll start blending straight away. So when I blend colors together, I'll lay down a dark color and then I'll teardrop in between. So you'll see here, like in this area, for instance, I've got my really dark color, and then because the brush I'm using wasn't at full strength, there's a part here where the colors were mixed together, and I want that color. So I'm just going to hold my finger on and teardrop that color, which is now between the two colors. And then I'll go over the area, and you'll end up with another area which is between two colors, and you go back and you do that. So that's the kind of thing I do when I'm blending like this. I usually use the bamboo brush. I don't know why, but I just love this brush the most. I like it. It sort of has a paintery feel to it. It's my favorite brush. So yeah, so I just like, see how it's sort of paintery feel. I don't know. I like that more, like you're actually using paint feel to things, rather than that super soft brush I was using before. I will sometimes go and use the smudge tool to sort of blend things together a bit more. And I mentioned this in my other videos, but the felt marker is my favorite for the smudge tool. And you can change how strong it is and how big it is and stuff. I usually have it about here, and I just sort of go in an upward motion or in the direction you want to pull the color in. Or if you just want to like make a line less harsh, I sort of go in this zigzag motion to blur them together, and you can end up with quite a smooth look. So yeah, and then I just spend hours doing that kind of thing, just adding colors in and getting darker spots again, and just basically making the shapes of the creature. Once I get to a point where the line art, the sketch is no longer needed, I will actually just delete it. So at the moment, I'm just getting the shapes down so I know where the eye is and I know where the horns are gonna start from. Because I usually like to get rid of my sketches as fast as possible and just get to creating the shapes. So that's probably, yeah, see, that's good for me. So now I'll just turf this sketch and I'll just sort of get down to business, I guess, and just keep doing this kind of thing and blurring it in. And I usually do this kind of stuff a lot later, but I will start to add in other colors. So I'll say like maybe there's some water below it, so I'm just going to add in a bit of sort of teal color coming from underneath, and I'll do the same thing. So I'll paint a little bit of it, I'll teardrop the color in between, and then I'll paint the color in between back over it so it's blended in more. And then I might use the smudge tool to blend it in even more. So I've got like this bit of reflected light coming from underneath. It's probably a bit too much, so I'm just going to paint back over with that darker color again. This is the worst color dragon, but oh well. Yeah, so I guess that's how I paint and stuff. Just pick some colors to make the lighter parts. Yeah, I guess there's not really much else for me to say about this, because this is what I do, and then I just keep doing this for literally hours until I'm happy with how the picture looks. If you want specific tutorials on how I do specific things like fur or scales, feathers, how I would do line art, then I do actually have tutorials on that already in my How I Use Artflow playlist, which I'll link at the end of this video. I also have a how to create brushes, where you can create brushes like textured brushes or cloud brushes. So these are my custom brushes that I've made. So I've got like this textured brush, which you can use for a bunch of different things, but yeah, you can see it's like got quite a strong wood sort of texture. But I find it very useful. I made these brushes purely to show people how to make brushes, and I've used them ever since then. So I quite like how these turned out, and I do encourage you to sort of experiment with stuff and have a play around with stuff, because half the fun of learning is to experiment, and you never know what you'll find. You never know what you'll create, or if you'll find something new and fun, or something that you really love. So just play around with the tools that you've been given and see what you can come up with, and you might find you've made something you really love. So yeah. I'm going to continue this picture and try and finish it for you, but a lot of this I might not be talking for, because I will basically just be painting. So I might speed it up, we'll see how we go, but I will be recording voice as I'm doing it at the moment, and we'll see how we end up once I finish the picture. I might see about changing the color a little bit. It is a bit of a weird color, so I'm just going to use hue saturation to see if there's any other colors that appeal to me. maybe a bit less saturated. Yeah, okay. And I guess I'll just start shading. So I'm just shaping the larger forms at the moment. Once the larger forms are all down pat, then I'll start going in and detailing smaller parts. But to begin with, we just want to get the large shapes down as a whole before we go detailing anything, because I want to make sure that everything's in the right position before I go in and spend a lot of time like adding scales or something like that. I do rotate the canvas quite a lot. I find looking at things from different angles helps me get the right shapes. So if you've watched any of my other videos, especially when they're at higher speeds, you'll notice that I flip the canvas quite a bit and I rotate the canvas quite a bit. It's just the way I've found that works for me for my creative process. Whenever I have a program where I can't do that, I actually feel a bit lost, and like drawing becomes a little bit awkward for me. So even when I was drawing with real media, like if a sketchbook and stuff, I would like turn the book as I draw as well. So it's just how I like to draw, and I find it easier to be able to turn the canvas so that it matches the way I'm holding my hand, rather than trying to put my hand in an awkward position, I guess. So I'm just using the smudge tool at the moment, if you didn't notice. I'm just blending some of these colors in a bit more, and then I'll go back to adding more color on and defining shapes. I should probably do something about these horns. Maybe it's like a forest dragon or something. Yeah. Now, the horn's going to be shiny. I often do this dark line that will actually be right up against a then light line to show that it's a shiny. It's sort of like metallic-y. So that's how I achieve that sort of metallic-y look, is to put a dark color right next to a light one where the harsh shine is. And if you look at metallic things, they quite often do look like that. And then on the other side, I'll have the transition slightly less harsh. Whoops. That's probably too light. And if it's really metallic or really shiny, it will definitely have colors from its surrounding areas reflecting off it. So there's going to be sky here, so I think I'll add some blues in here, being reflected off my shiny horns. But I'll usually leave the final highlight stage to the end. Yeah. She has fangs. I am a fan of fangs. I'll do his wing claw. Giving him some eyelids. Or her. The gender of this dragon is not decided yet. Maybe have some old lines. Just creating a shoulder or wing, shoulder, whatever you want to call it here. Kinda. I don't know, I don't like it. I'm gonna undo it. Let's try again. So the wings probably going like... That's probably a better position. Then move this way. It's a shadow from the wing. Sort of. You have these like small thorny sort of spikes, I think. Sort of like quills. Man, it looks creepy now. Blood red eyes. Alright, I'm going to add some more colour into this. So I'm going to get a fuzzy brush and I'm just going to add, I think that blush is too red. Make it more pink. And this saturated, maybe it needs to be more orange. Try this. I think that works okay. Just putting some, I'll blend this back in, but yeah, just some around the mouth and maybe a little bit around here and where the claw is, maybe on the shoulders. Just add a little bit of colour here and there. Yeah. And I want to darken up around the eyes. So it has like eyelids. Eyelashes sort of thing. So I'm going to go back to my bamboo brush. And now I've got these pink colors here. I can just sort of teardrop them and spread them around how I like, and get the other colors around if I want to take it back a little bit more. Just going to add some more sort of lines in here, sort of make it look a bit more wrinkly, like older, I guess. I still have some of this sort of bluish color that I added before, that makes a good sort of reflected light from below. Gonna make this ridge a bit darker. Yeah, maybe this is looking alright. I'll probably crop it to just the head, just to save on time. just adding some harsher highlights and shadows. I might add some scales. Let's see how it looks. Yeah, I think it sort of looks like little spots a bit. I think it looks cute. Let's put spots or scales. Maybe they're freckles. Yeah, I think that's good. I don't want to spend too long on this. Just to show you, you know how I do stuff in real time rather than all my super sped up stuff I normally do. something a bit different with the eyes. Just experimenting. Make these a bit darker though. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Pretty alright for like a half-hour drawing. I'm gonna crop it because I'm not gonna draw the rest. So just use the cropping tool. I should probably save this first actually. Let's save it first. I want to keep all the horn in and the neck. Yeah. Quick background. What shall we do? Probably should do a forest of some sort, but I think that'll be too green. When I can't decide a colour, I'll just put a colour down and then I'll use the hue saturation and decide what sort of colour to use from there. Something like this, and then I'll use the gradient and we'll have some sunlight coming down. I'm going to turn the opacity down for this so it's gradienting into the colour that's already there, and I want it to be radial. Maybe a bit less. That looks good. I'll use my crappy brush that I created. Yeah. Look at that. Amazing. There, amazing. I'm gonna blur this. Yeah, I might adjust the background as well. Okay, and I'm just gonna add a white outline, I think, just to make it stand out from the background. So just I'm gonna use the smooth tool so that, because I don't have a steady hand and I want the line to be pretty straight, so I've just created a layer below and I'm just drawing an outline around the picture. Now if you're using Photoshop, you could just use the stroke option, but Artflow doesn't have stroke, so manually drawing the stroke is the only option. There we go. It's not the best thing in the world, but I think it's not bad for like a quick drawing. Here's my signature. Woo! That means it's done. Ta-da! Well, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you enjoyed it in the comments below. Thank you. Bye!